Hey guys, we just watched Arrival.
hmm
Mm-hmm. This is the fifth most popular film on Letterboxd.
What's its rating?
4.1.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen it before, but this rewatch has cemented some ideas. Most of them which I'll talk about in the spoiler
This is a
section.
very difficult film to talk about without giving spoilers
Yes.
because, as you mentioned in the marketing, this film thrives on a feeling of mystery going in
Mm-hmm.
and amplifies that. Drives it. It's interesting. We've been talking about the keeping information.
Yeah.
That can be used as a narrative device.
Yep.
This is such an interesting case.
Mm-hmm.
Such an interesting
Right.
case. Yeah. Where it's done very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what's your rating?
It might be one of my favorites of all time.
Really?
Yes.
Oof.
Yes.
Oof.
It's
Hot damn.
right now I'm just like in awe of
Yeah.
it. So it's hard to think very critically, like in like placement or whatever.
Ugh, I hate
But,
to,
Like,
man.
because I mean I don't think that way in the
Mhm.
same way that
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I don't
like,
usually think that way until I dig my list out.
Yeah.
You know.
So
it doesn't.
and also like I also I don't know. That's a conversation for another time.
Mm.
But in terms of for the film, I mean, yeah, this is such great stuff. It hits all the right buttons for me, and I don't know if you noticed, but I actually cried at the end.
Oh, really? I couldn't
Yeah.
tell. You were staying very still because I
Yeah.
was. I mean, I teared up from the very beginning.
I almost teared up at the beginning
Really?
because I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we're getting into.
Yeah,
Like I knew from
but-
the first shot, like this is gonna be something
Mhm.
enormous.
Well, we can talk about
Yeah.
how well shot this film is.
Yes, we can talk about things that don't
Yeah.
give away what the film is.
Yes.
Or really what it's about.
Yes.
Because that in itself is something that is meant to be discovered.
Yes.
And I'll talk about in spoilers
Mm-hmm.
how that is so well crafted, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And again, it's the button that really that pushes it for me that makes me feel like why I want to rate this so highly.
Mm-hmm.
Not just 5 stars, but like one of the finest examples of doing something like this
Mm-hmm.
is that it takes advantage of its own medium.
Yes,
as film.
it does.
As film.
Yes, it does.
And your expectations of what you're shown through visuals, through audio,
Mm-hmm.
and through communication,
Mm-hmm.
which is what the film is about.
Yes.
And exactly what I'm interested in as a creative person. So
Mhm.
it's like all the right buttons.
Oh, I almost
Yeah.
well, because you think of it so highly, there are
Mhm.
things that I almost don't want to say, like in our spoiler section.
I can already see flaws in just because of the nature of
Daylight.
what it is.
In the nature of no, I'm kidding. This is the
like
name of the track.
one fault I will go ahead and get off right off the bat. There were more things I wish they had done more. But I realized in retrospect, in order for the film to be as focused as it was, they couldn't have really.
I don't know.
And they chose a different path, which
Yeah.
I would have liked more of this, but in the end,
Yeah.
what I wish it could have been versus what it was, what it is like phenomenal. So
Okay.
yeah, there's everything has flaws.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested in what you have to say
But
about its flaws.
some of the flaws stood out to me more this time.
Interesting.
It might be a high 4.5. I don't know if I can.
Okay.
I had it at 5.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm very hesitant to talk about the book because I just read the novella today.
You said it was. I definitely want to read it.
Okay.
This was such a great watching experience. I'm very, very interested. And I can.
Which means I shouldn't really talk about it then.
Damn. Well, there are things I'm interested about the novella because at this point I'm not. I feel like I understand what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about spoilers for the novella.
Okay. Yeah.
So
it's a very. It's a. I'd say. I mean, I'd say it's a very faithful adaptation. I think everything.
I would imagine it. I suspect that it would be difficult to, like you said, this was like the impossible adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I right now have a very hard time seeing how this would adapt into a novel. Although I have
Really?
ideas.
Really?
I have ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but I imagine it's something very different. So, like something, I mean, not different, like the ideas are probably the same,
Mm-hmm.
but at least what really pushes my buttons, which is the execution,
Mm-hmm.
probably completely different.
It's
Like-
more similar than you might think, but it doesn't. Yeah, I think this movie overall. I think the story might actually work better on film.
I can see that.
Yeah, but I prefer the book because of reasons in the second half of the movie. That I thought the movie did some things, made some decisions, made some alterations.
Oh, interesting.
That I was like, whoa. Now that I've read the book, this decision seems a little. It detracts from certain things.
Okay, Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can understand why they might have done that, and that is probably. I'm suspecting that shares with some of the things that I find as more flaws in this film.
Mm.
Yeah, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, the novella is 30-something pages.
What was it originally written in English or Chinese?
It's in English. It's yeah. He's an Asian American,
Okay.
Chinese American. He writes everything in English,
Okay.
and it thrives on the use of the English language. It's a very interesting novella, actually. Like on paper, it does some things.
Do you have a physical copy of it, or did you read it online?
I have a PDF of it.
Oh, send it to me
Okay.
immediately.
Okay.
I'll probably read it in a couple of days.
Yeah. Okay. It makes me not want to talk about it because
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I want to
It's
go
fine.
deep into this novella.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll see. What
I would
happens.
like to, when I have money, I want to own this film.
Yeah.
Okay, as a sound designer, person who writes music for film, and I'm blown away by the music in this.
This is one of the films I wish I caught in theaters.
Me too.
It didn't.
This is it's similar to the experience I had with Mother, where I'm so glad I got that in the theater because it would not have been the same.
Right.
I feel like not seeing this in a theater was a similar missed opportunity. And funny
Yes.
enough, it's the same sound designer.
Yeah. Man. Okay, I really want to go into spoilers, but let's make some recommendations. Ooh, this is tough.
Huh.
I would recommend because Villeneuve, the director, only recently got into sci-fi. The older you go, the more his films were grounded and disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
He did some grounded and disturbing films, including because he's a French director. His first few films were in French.
Do I know any of them? Except
maybe not.
Except the recent one that's
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal playing two characters.
I've heard of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is very good.
I think we've considered watching it.
Yeah, that is a very strange film. That is a film where you have to, it makes no sense on a literal level. Yeah, so that's the coolest thing is from, let's see, was it the past 5 films? Yeah, from 2013 to 2017, he's released one film per year. Yes. And
this is one of them.
This is one of them.
Wow.
This is 2016. And the Blade Runner came the next year, which is crazy. So yeah, the 5-year stretch was Prisoners, which is a film, very heavy film I've heard. I haven't seen it, but it's about 2 kids that get kidnapped just out of the blue, and then their dads the whole journey is these 2 dads going to find the killer. But it's done in a way that's
it's most likely not, but it sounds like Taken squared.
No.
Taken squared.
It's really all about the anxiety of being a father.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, if you're a dad, everyone has said do not watch this film.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super hard hitting. And then he did Enemy, which is probably the shortest one in runtime. It's like 90 minutes, but it's still very well crafted. And then he did Sicario, which is a film about the war on drugs in Mexico. That's a tense film. That's like the tensest thing you'll ever watch. It's crazy. And then he did Arrival, and then he did Blade Runner 2049. And I haven't seen his older films, but everyone who's seen his older films say that they actually prefer the older films. And that reminds me of how I feel with Paul Thomas Anderson. Like, as much as I love Phantom Thread, and as much as I don't care for There Will Be Blood, and Punch Drunk Love is good too, but I really prefer the Magnolia and the Boogie Nights era of Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, where the camera work is much more fluid and it's much more it's much more vibrant. There's a young quality to it. When afterwards it becomes more of a mature thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'd like to explore more of his films. Yeah, everyone says he's one of the. Oh yeah, so a comparison I'd like to make, and I'll do that more in spoilers, but I'll begin by saying like, he's like if Christopher Nolan were actually artful.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And the color like
if he actually, yeah, that's actually spot on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine a Dark Knight film filmed like this.
Right.
It would be. Well, no, it wouldn't even be the Dark Knight, because, yeah.
No, and all the films I've seen have the similar color palette, where it's very muted, and it's not about the vibrant colors. So very Nolan-esque, but. And I will go into some of the flaws that he shares with Nolan that I can't stand.
Okay.
That includes in this film to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's the reason the half star was taken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll discuss that soon. I'm trying to think of other recommendations. I mean, I feel like good science fiction. Oh, a film everyone compares this with is a older film starring Jodie Foster called Contact. It's also an alien invasion film, and apparently this film, as a work of cinema, takes a lot of inspiration from Contact, and I haven't seen it, but I showed this during the Oscar rush of 2016 in my film club, and somebody came. It was Connor.
Oh yeah.
He came. He watched it. A couple days later, he watched Contact. He saw me, and he was like, "Contact's way better than Arrival." And I refuse to believe that because Contact's out of like a 3.3 or 3.4 on Letterboxd. Maybe a 3.6, but it doesn't go any higher than 3.6. But maybe for what he wants in an alien invasion film, Contact is more. I imagine it's another film that it doesn't take it as an invasion. It takes it more of like a contact between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can imagine that as a thing that exists.
Yeah.
I'll say that. There's things I want to say, but
I doubt that it's better than Arrival.
I'm a big sucker for music when it's done this well.
Oh yeah, there's also the soundtrack.
The soundtrack, oh my god. Like, I had said that Mother was my favorite sound design film. This is right up there with it.
Yeah.
But even better because the genre allows for the sound to be out of this world. Quite literally. Because they're aliens.
Man, you gotta watch Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Just for the sound design in that movie.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh. And also the visuals. But you gotta see the original Blade Runner first. That's the thing. I guarantee you will dig it.
I will explain my skepticism when we get into spoilers. I understand now. I explained why I had my
skepticism with Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well,
because I can... I have a feeling after seeing this, I can explain that a little clearer now.
I kind of wanna... I wanna talk more about this in non-spoiler form. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of this movie to some extent. I don't think we need to go through... Yeah, it's about alien contact with Earth. And...
It starts with, the aliens are here, what do we do? And it's a very realist take on it. Like, I would... Like, it's a film, it's movie, it's a story, it has an agenda to show a narrative to you, yet the realism in the film is pretty accurate, down to the science.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I mean, it's not the most realistic thing in the world, because it's aliens, but as far as
the approach,
what could actually happen.
Yeah, and the execution.
It's quite believable.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least immediately after seeing it, which... That's impressive in
agree.
itself.
I would agree. Yeah. You know what's a film we should watch? A film that this has been compared with, and like some people compare Villeneuve with Nolan, you know, as two directors. I want to see Nolan's take on outer space. The very divisive film, Interstellar.
Oh yeah.
I want to watch. Like,
I've heard so much shit about that film,
but
also good shit.
Exactly.
Good and bad shit.
For the longest time, I have not wanted to see it. But now...
This makes me want to watch it.
This makes me want to watch it, too.
Yeah, because I feel like this is a very interesting genre right now.
Yeah, and apparently Nolan also tries to do some humanistic things, but so many people have said it's corny, and so many people have said it works. So, I'm down.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good spot. I think we.
Okay, yeah. We should get into spoilers. If you're not convinced to watch this film, if you're on the edge, like I've been wanting to see this film for a long time and haven't been thrilled to, just because I wasn't convinced.
Exactly.
It was going to be anything that special.
Mm.
But if you're into music at all, the sound is incredible. If you're into very interesting narratives, if you're into science, the science is very interesting in this, especially. I mean, I don't even want to give away what science it is, because that is in itself is kind of a spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're interested in communication, if you're interested in very interesting films and and like breathtakingly aesthetically, like again, Christopher Nolan, if he had artful intuition.
Yeah, I mean,
that's spot on.
Yeah, this is the thing though. This film actually made quite a bit of box office back. So, but I wasn't drawn to it because of the mystery.
That's the challenging thing with this.
It's such a challenging thing.
I have more to say about that in spoilers. That's such an interesting point.
Right.
Yeah.
We should just go for it.
Okay.
Okay, spoiler time.
Okay, spoiler time.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this film, go watch it. If you have not seen it, please do not watch the rest of the video. You're doing yourself a big disservice.
Yes.
Okay. Spoilers.
Yep.
All right. Wow.
Now we can actually say it. Now we can actually,
Whew. Oh my gosh. So this.
You go for the positives, because I don't want to start off by immediately.
Okay. So I'm amazed by how this film is structured.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's something that Mother does too, but in this film does it also very well. And also, Millie Actress did this.
I think I recommended Arrival when we watched
really?
Millennium Actress.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, wow. Yeah.
And I was like, I can't say anything more.
It has stuff in it that doesn't make sense. You have to interpret things that don't make sense. The very first thing that doesn't make sense is something that is actually a common narrative device, the flashback.
Yes.
It utilizes a flashback as, this is something I understand as a film viewer. I understand what's happening.
As a person.
But also as a viewer.
Also as someone who recognizes tropes and recognizes...
It plays on your knowledge of that trope, that, if we see a sequence that is not in time with the film, then therefore it happened in the past, right? So, if we hear a sound that doesn't belong to the scene that we're in currently...
Like his coughing and his phlegm.
Well, that isn't happening currently, but then... so now we are transported to a flashback sequence. Okay, that makes sense. We understand.
And so many films have done that.
Yeah, and we understand. That's a narrative thing. It's a thing. We take the interpretation. Yeah, but then we learn later in the film what's really going on.
Yes.
That this is not a narrative device. This actually is happening. She is actually going through time, being displaced.
Yes.
And that's how the logic of this film works.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing about it, it's not just a trope to further its agenda. Rather, the trope is the agenda. And that's what amazes me.
Yes.
Because this film, it's not about aliens at all. The aliens are just a way to communicate what the thing about this film is, which is about appreciating time. And it's a film about time. And it's a film about...
And to go through, despite the good and the bad things that happen in life, to embrace everything.
Yes.
To embrace every moment.
Yeah, it's about acceptance.
Yes.
This film is about acceptance. It's not about aliens.
Right.
And it does that by a very, very cool way of exploring time in science fiction.
You know what it reminded me of? While I was watching it, recently we watched another science fiction film where we got the premise immediately.
Yeah.
This is World on a Wire by Rainer Werner Fassbinder. I still really like it. Mark, because of the fact that it's a concept that's been explored a lot. We both had a bit of trouble with how the film explores its ideas. But while watching Arrival, I was just thinking, because that film was in the back of my head, I was like, is there any way someone who hasn't seen it could have predicted it before the point where the film wants you to... Because there's a very specific point where the film wants you to know.
Yes.
And the music and the visuals with the picture frame. It was all lined up together
Yes.
to reveal that moment.
Yeah.
And after seeing it second time, I have one. There's no way you would have known. It hides it so well. Even knowing it, looking back on how it tells its story.
Yes. I mean, I'm just speculating here. I wonder if someone who is really, like, there might be someone who is a big science fiction nerd. Who is very, like, that's the thing. This is not a trope. Like, you don't use flashbacks. That's the thing. It is a intentional miscommunication.
Exactly.
The flashback. And yet, it's not using it as a trope. It's because miscommunication is the whole subject of the film. That's what impresses me so much.
Yes.
Because
it's great.
how the film is being told you to aligns with both the narrative and the themes. It's a marriage that is just.
Well, we're not going to start talking about the novel yet. I want to just dwell on the film a bit. But once I start talking, I'll give you a preview. Once I start talking about the novel, you will immediately understand why this works so much better as a film. Like, as a novel in itself, it does not give a potential screen adapter the clue.
Just talk about it. I'm interested.
No, because I actually want to talk about another trope first. I
want
to follow
okay,
sure. Because I have other things to talk about.
Okay, sure.
Another. This is not a trope, but I want to begin talking about what Nolan and Villeneuve both do in their films that I'm not too big of a fan of.
Sure. Yeah.
And the first point is actually kind of a positive thing that this film does. The main point I'm getting at is dialogue. And I think both Nolan and Villeneuve like to do these very heady one-liners. And in some examples, even in Arrival, it doesn't work. But what does work, and it doesn't work until the end of the film for me, is the dialogue between Ian and... Oh, what's her leading lady's name? Louise. Ian and Louise. Because the first time I watched it, I thought it was so corny. When they were sitting next to each other and talking about, oh, that's why I'm single. But the reason it works is because this film is also about, like, how many of your decisions are random. And if you had a difference... Yeah, actually, I mean...
Does the novel...
The novel explores it more, but ever since the first time I watched it, that was actually one perspective I got from just the film. It seemed like it was something about, like, how many of your decisions are predetermined if you can see time from another perspective, if you can see things beyond cause and effect, you know? And if we look at it that way, then it's like the film is intentionally making their chemistry through dialogue so obvious that in the end, even though, like, one of the corniest lines, like, it wasn't them that surprised me, it was you. Like, in any other film it wouldn't have worked. But in this film, because it was at that moment, the dialogue becomes something that is also, like, almost bad writing, but the bad writing makes it good writing. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to get at. That really surprised me.
Yeah, I have more to say on that. One of the things that I was annoyed with is, not annoyed, but, like, that I felt wanting more was the science. Which, according to what little you've told me of the book, the novella is nothing but, right? Or almost nothing.
I will tell you very soon.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, it even becomes overload, right? Like,
it's not just the science; it's the linguistics too.
Like linguistics.
Oh my gosh, both linguistics and science. You're reading, because I wanted to finish the novel quick enough so that we can watch the movie and, like, deal with my other react to the case stuff. But there were moments where I'm like, oh, I wish I could just spend 15 minutes on this one little passage because I don't understand what she's talking. I want to look up what this word means. I want to look up what this grammatical thing means because I've never heard of that word in my life, but they're just injecting it in there. Yeah, and...
Yeah, with... well, yeah, go on.
But, see, okay. For example, I'll just give you a brief thing. So, in the film, the way they tell you that it's about time is through taking her into the spaceship one last time, where she's actually interacting with the aliens face to face without the glass. That whole really dreamy...
Are you talking about in the novel or in the film?
No, in the film.
In the film? Okay,
in the film. That scene does not exist in the novel.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
That is
Okay.
not how they tell it. They tell it through this theorem about light. And how light, there's this theory that when light travels from one destination to another, it always utilizes the minimum path or the maximum path in terms of distance. So like when light goes through just space or like gas versus when light goes through water, light will bend in certain ways that almost show that the way light travels, it predetermines its route. And this is a thing that actually exists in science. And it's through that we get the idea that, oh, maybe through learning the language, Louise is starting to understand the beginning and the end. Mm-hmm. The whole predestination thing. So it's through that theorem and through a lot of complex explanations of that theorem that we understand that, oh, time can be explored this way through too. Yeah. So that's kind of how the novel does it. But so when I saw the movie this time and the scene with the alien, I thought it was really clunky how they did it at first. They almost gave away too much. I wanted it to be a bit more like her discovering it. But it is very powerful though when like they clearly state it and you're like, "Oh."
It's well
because it's being treated like a revelation.
I completely understand that decision on their part.
Yeah, I completely understand too, and I'm not saying that's one of the flaws.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That's still okay.
That has to do with an adaptation to the medium.
Yeah.
Like the film becomes so much stronger when you can show the realization.
Yes.
Rather than because in a novel it's all
everything's
ideas.
given.
Everything's ideas.
Yeah, this is a very dialogue heavy.
Depending on how you write, of course. But with a novel that I imagine is so much about ideas and about the discovery of ideas.
Yeah.
It makes sense that the narrative would be in the ideas. So therefore, the actual face-to-face contact wouldn't be necessarily a given, like a necessity.
Right.
But here, the revelations, like, where are you going to have them in that boring old desk room or on the spaceship itself? In a novel, it doesn't matter where you are. Mm-hmm. In a film, it very much matters where you are because you're seeing it, right?
Yes, exactly.
So if you can show the realization in a place that is so statically charged with visuals and sound and stuff, then the realization could be so much larger or a bigger deal, which is odd because I'm usually not an advocate for like making things a big deal.
Right, but like, no, it works here.
But it works here because the reason that it's making it a big deal is all really...
It's because the first half...
Everything works so well together.
Yeah, because the first half doesn't reveal it to you. It's all about not revealing and making you think that it's...
Well, you know
else.
What? It actually does show you. It reveals it, and it shows you, but it knows you won't understand.
Exactly.
That's the genius of it. It shows you all of the information you need to know. You know how you were talking about, it's the narrative device that really gets to me is... If we had this piece of information, the tension would be gone. No, they're showing you all the information. We just don't understand it.
Well, here's the thing. Even before we watched this film, I knew you were gonna like it, and specifically for this reason.
Yeah,
I knew that you were gonna give it a pass, and to loving it because it's done in a way that justifies it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. In the very beginning, like from the first when the Max Rager started.
Not Max Rager. No.
What's his
Max
name?
Richter.
Max Richter.
Yeah. Rager's different.
Is he a different composer?
Rager's romantic. Very romantic organist.
Oh, right. Okay, Max Richter.
Yeah,
I'm rusty
very
on my
awesome,
music.
minimalist. It's like if minimalist and new age had a baby that most classical musicians can actually accept. Yeah, I think all of Max Richter's music is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Even though it's not as classical as a John Adams.
Yeah, right. And it's funny because like when it started, like one of the thoughts I had was this film is taking itself really seriously. But like it was polished enough and the music was so great and like I was kind of able to give a bit of the doubt and like the one liner that she said, which like I don't believe in beginnings and endings anymore. I actually thought that's so fucking stupid. What the hell are you talking about? Right.
And
I realized, okay. In retrospect.
Yeah, I can understand how the voiceover narration at the
Yeah.
beginning could feel a little like, what? Why are you using this technique?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's one of the things that I would attribute as a flaw, but really more comes down just to sort of preference, because it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of how I would do it if I were in a similar situation, but like that's not really a flaw. That's just like my own taste, right?
Mhm.
Like this film just made the choice to focus on sort of the psychologicalness of it and like how the characters feel, rather than like the actual science of it and the actual like they do the science, but in terms of prioritizing one or the other, the film really takes the route to manipulate you as a viewer so that you sort of have the same experience, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
it's time.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
time to tell you about the novel and the novella. It both amplifies the science more, and it amplifies the emotion more.
Really?
But there are almost no politics.
Wow.
All the politics are are in the film.
That makes it really interesting.
Yeah.
Because then the film is like actively sending a political message
Yeah.
that the novella doesn't. That's
Yes.
really fascinating.
Well, the novella was written the year 2000, yeah, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if the film was specifically going for a non-Independence Day approach. It's almost like proving that, hey, we can make a film that's not about fighting, not about Independence Day, while keeping like the politics really, 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 really clear. And also in the novella, there weren't just 9 or 12 spaceships. There were like over 100 of them throughout the world.
Oh.
But
wow.
all we get is the perspective of this one. We never know anything about the other ones. I think what the film does super well is that it chose 9 locations that were all seemingly in the middle of nowhere. And that's almost like going against it has to attack New York. It has to attack this big city. But this is clearly like the screenwriter's decision to place them at these random spots and then see how different parts of the world all react to it. So, but even from the first time, and this is not just a rewatch, but from the very first time I watched it, the stuff that got me a little uninvested, I still thought was very interesting and well written, was the politics. And so now because I've seen, I got to the ending and it was very emotional. Watching it the second time, I wanted the emotions to come a little quicker. So a lot of the politics stuff did feel slow. It didn't feel unnecessarily slow, but it felt like a little bit of a chore to get through. And that's a personal thing.
I will say, not for me, not just the politics, but the entire way they presented information in this film felt dumbed down. And I say dumbed down like in a kind of a negative context, but like they kind of had to.
Yeah.
Because the alternative would be a film that would kind of be inaccessible.
Yeah.
And if you make a film that's inaccessible, you can't make money.
Right.
That's just the reality.
Right.
Of it.
The detonation scene does not exist in the book.
That was kind of.
Also, the timer clearly was like running slower than real time.
Well, yeah.
But that's a movie thing.
That's a movie thing.
Yeah.
But I mean. Okay, so I can part of see the weaknesses that the film has.
But the most shocking part,
yeah.
the Chinese general scene, just movie, where she phone calls.
Oh, so that's entirely.
Yes, entirely
from
the
the
movie.
screenplay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and the thing, and I like that scene. I think that scene, it's definitely a good way to explore just the concept of time.
Yeah, it's leaning more towards the Christopher Nolan-esque.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of
just
way
from
of
the
doing
way
things,
they interact in that dinner party.
Yeah.
It was starting to grate me a little bit, but it came down to one line that was like, this is a 4.5. And it's the very end. It's when the Max Richter comes back. And it's supposed to be the most emotional part of the film. I was so ready to start like just full on sobbing, but she tells Ian like, if you could live your life, if you knew what would happen in the future, would you do it? And for some reason, it's like we already get the point, and the fact that she says it almost like cock blocks me from the emotions.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was that one line. All the other lines could stomach them. They were a little annoying, I could stomach them. But that one line right when the waterworks are about to come out, was just like, ugh, yeah, it's not like the fact that I teared up more at the beginning than at the end, But maybe it is me reading into the novel too much and desiring more. So maybe a third watch is something that could change things once again. Just because I had a special experience with just reading the novel hours before the movie. Yeah. But the way the novella amplifies the emotions more is that every time she has a flashback, and they were way more frequent. Yeah. Because it's a book, you're able to insert more story in between the science.
Oh yeah, I can imagine you could really flip-flop.
Yeah.
Like here, it felt kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you can't really.
And there was a long stretch in the first half where nothing happened, and then there was like a very specific scene where she suddenly sees the daughter again, and you're like, oh yeah, she's reminded of her in the past. But from the book, it's intentionally awkward from the beginning. Where like it just crazy, it's just like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. The aliens arrive. It actually starts similarly as in the movie, where like she talks about the daughter, but everything's in futures tense, and there will be actually things will be, I remember, you will, and that works in more than one way.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
that is so cool. Yeah. That is
it
so
also
fucking
works
cool
because this movie and book is about language.
That is so
and it literally
cool.
Points it in your face the limitations of English language when put in the system of this.
That is so cool. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But when we get to like the specific, flashback, flash forwards, they were much more poignant events because they were able to like dedicate more paragraphs to it. Like we see the daughter's college graduate, and the daughter dies later.
Oh, so not right at the beginning.
No, the daughter.
Do you know that the daughter dies at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
But no, the daughter dies at a later point in her life. The daughter dies after she goes to college and gets a job, and I don't think it was established that it was a terminal disease. We just know that she dies, which makes it kind of even more powerful because you're not given the reason.
Yeah, here they like very specifically show like.
Yeah, like, I think that's the extent to which I will.
Doctors feeling the lymph nodes and.
Yes, but this is the extent which I will spoil. Like.
Okay.
But there is one more thing about the novella that I cannot not talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the other thing.
You know what we could do?
What?
If you want to talk about something, no. If you want to talk about something that you don't want me to hear, I can leave.
No.
Come back.
No. Because the novella is so short.
Okay.
And because you already know so much.
Okay.
There's one more thing. That this film, I don't think the decisions it made was good.
Not good for the film?
Not good for the film. Not good in general. In the novel, the aliens never reveal why they came to Earth. They left, and Louise was left on her own to discover things. And when the movie, like the 3,000 years thing, it became a little too obvious. And the used weapon, that's a Nolanism that I can't take. Because at the very beginning, it's like the first, they even say on the plane, the first weapon is language. And clearly, aliens saying using weapons, that was a hark back to that line at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a Nolanism I can't stand.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. Because I can totally see why they would kind of have to is maybe a bad word, but like why they were pressured to make the choice of ramping up the tension and building the story in this way so that it becomes dramatic. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, basically the choice of having them leave, the tension goes away. And it wouldn't have worked for the political drama they wanted to turn it into instead. If the aliens had left, there would have been no reason for China to make all the fuss that they did, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so like it's a dumb adaptation thing where they have to make sure the film works. They have to make sure the film has money. They have to make sure it's successful.
Well, they don't. They didn't
Yeah,
have to tell her
right.
the reason they were there. That the language is the weapon. Because afterwards, she goes back to Earth. She tries to explain to Forrest Whitaker that the weapon is the language. It's a gift. He doesn't listen to her.
You know, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That, it kind of works because like, she seems to be the only one on Earth who knows.
Mm-hmm.
So if no one believes her about the time shenanigans,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, the rewrite of the plot kind of does itself in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because of like, who wouldn't believe her? She just stopped China.
Yeah.
And she has a completely plausible explanation for how she got
Well,
that number.
no.
Right?
Well, she didn't. Oh, I guess because because given in the movie's plot, if the aliens told her their reason, then they could have left even sooner. But they still stayed.
They stayed until it stopped, and then they left.
It's very odd.
That's
Yeah.
well, I mean, you can also argue that they let her down, and then she has like movie stuff happen,
Mm-hmm.
and then they leave.
Mm-hmm.
They make it seem like they stay for a little bit.
Although, okay, I can understand one reason for it working. I think that gives her the initiative to write the books later and become the educator of it. Like, to actually spread it. And clearly this movie wants to, like, that's a important part of the flash forward where she becomes like the leading expert in that.
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, in the dinner banquet scene, you see the flag of the symbol of the aliens. And I guess that's the reason, because she has to know that the language, she needs to spread this language, and that, if they want to explore the idea of, I don't know, the power of language further, I guess it kind of justifies itself. I admit seeing the books published and seeing her teaching it was a good touch that the film had.
Yeah, because you can't do that really in film. I mean, in a novel too well without
Right.
like going there and
Right,
talking about it.
especially at that point in the novel, you expect that every time there's a flashback, it's about the personal life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way they could do something that was about anything else.
Did they have any flash forwards? Well, never mind. I'll find out.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask something about the novella. I'll just keep it at that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Also, how long of a read is it?
It took me not too long.
Like
I wanna
36
say-
pages, did you say?
Like 36 like full A4 size papers.
Okay.
Probably took me. I mean, I'm not the best reader.
Okay, I'm not
It's
either.
been a long time,
I'm not
but
either.
I think it took like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
While glossing over some of the science-y stuff.
Mm.
Oh, I shouldn't. Should I leave that for you to discover? I'll leave that one last thing for you to discover. There's another one big difference
Okay.
that it does, and I'm not even gonna. Yeah,
Okay.
that's. It's not important enough to warrant
Okay.
a spoiler.
There's so many great things in this. Okay, another thing, the bird.
What is the bird? Is it about oxygen level?
I'm not sure what it represents.
Yeah.
But right now, from what I understand of it, it serves as a way to help show you, like, to insert something like, oh, they have a bird there. At first, it's just like, oh, they have a bird. Why do they have a bird? And they never talk about the bird.
I like that too.
But then later they show like her hallucinating the aliens to show that she's kind of like seems to be losing it.
Yeah.
And then when the reveal happens, you understand. Wait a minute, that's why we've been seeing the bird. Oh, was that not clear?
No.
She saw the bird because as soon as she became contact with the aliens, she started to become more like gain this time power somehow.
Yes.
Yeah. So the bird then is a really cool example of, how like it's a pet peeve of mine to like not give information. This is them giving information, but you don't understand why it's there. But like that is very very much the indicator.
I'm not sure I quite get it. I'm not sure I quite agree.
Like agree with what?
That the bird is actually her starting to.
Well, okay, maybe. I guess it's up to interpretation, right? Like what it means for her in the real life of the story. I guess what I mean is that with the narratively, it's telling you something. Like it's not hiding the information from you. Like It's showing you the information, but you just don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, the same thing of, trying to
Oh, I
understand,
see what
the
you're. I
communication,
see.
understanding the interpretation, like with the Satoshi Kon film, where
Mhm.
you have to make a interpretive leap of understanding.
Millennium Actress.
What did I say?
You said the Satoshi Kon film, and
Right.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
make
the
sure
Satoshi Kon film where they're filming this actress's memory, and like the interviewers are in her memory with a camera, and you sort of have to understand that that's not really happening.
Yes.
But like, and then it gets even more complicated from there.
Mhm.
And then like, yeah, so like the bird's there, you assume it's real, and you understand later, oh, it is real, but not in the way that you thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to like this film more because for many aspects, like this is one of the crowning achievements of cinema. I think.
So, one of the corny things that at first annoyed me, but then I realized that there's actually a really interesting justification for it. You know how we were talking earlier in the film where there was, I forget what it was, but there was a romance that did not seem genuine?
Mm-hmm.
It was the last film we saw, World on a Wire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This romance, they didn't put shit into this romance.
Mm-hmm.
I realize now that's a very intentional choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at when I started.
Oh, is that
what their dialogue?
Oh, yeah.
How like the dialogue feels a little canned.
Yeah, like it feels dumb as hell.
Mm-hmm.
However, I kind of accepted that because it's another one of those. They kind of make all of the other people in this film seem dumb as hell.
Right.
Like that seems to be a very intentional choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like the army is dumb as hell. All of the quick they even go out of their way to make all of the panic that everyone has kind of like understandable. Like I took it as understandable but flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just read like the almost empty like goings at her heart, like, hey, I'm single. I have to be single too. And she says that really funny line about you don't have to understand. Even if you understand communications, you can still be single.
Yes. Is that something like that?
Yeah, I'll find out if that's actual quote from the novella. I don't know if that's the screenwriter's words or the original author's
okay,
words.
now that you brought it up, I guess I'll have to. Yeah, in the novella, the relationship is much more believable.
Okay.
And it doesn't wait until that last moment for the relationship to start. The relationship develops as they're investigating the aliens.
Okay. I would buy it more if they maybe did that.
Right.
But I understand why they kind of left it out here, so they could be more focused and they could,
It's not about being more focused, but if you.
Well.
Because
let me finish my thought, and then you might have more to say about what you want to say. So I also saw this seems really empty. I don't believe that they're gonna get together at all. Like she gave me the impression that she wasn't even thinking about sex or not sex necessarily, but like courting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I realized, wait a minute, she just gained an awareness of time that's very different from like how you would usually react in that situation, right? Like she's aware of her lifetime that she's going to spend with this person, then of course she might even fall in love immediately with him.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it justifies it.
Exactly.
In a really interesting way that you kind of have to figure out on your own, maybe, but like it gives you enough information that it's not hard to put together at all, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like to justify the Nolan is like, that you, I don't know, they kind of ticked me off too, but for that moment,
right,
which allowed me, to really feel emotional at the end of this film. It allowed me to accept sort of what in most other instances would not be believable.
Right, and the fact that it moved you first before you figured out the brainy justification for it means that the film is successful.
Oh, I mean, I was entranced until till like I really saw what it was about, but when I understood what it was about, that's when it really hit me.
Yeah.
That's when I actually had the tears.
Right.
Yeah, it hit me hard. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which I mean, I'm sure that's the intention.
That is the intention.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack is great. The fact that he chose that one track. That track has been used so often in movies.
Oh, really?
On The Nature of Daylight specifically.
Huh.
It's been used in Shutter Island by Martin Scorsese. And this movie called Disconnect, which is about modern technology and stuff.
An interesting film that we couldn't talk in spoilers. Have you seen Predestination?
No, I've heard interesting things.
I've seen it.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like The Usual Suspects,
Mm-hmm.
and how it,
Oh boy.
like, it's,
Oh boy.
like, its game is like, let's see if you can understand our plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Ugh.
We got a plot for you here. You
Yeah.
want to see it?
Yeah.
We got it right here for you. Look at this tasty little plot.
Mm.
You want to see if you can figure this out? That seems to be
Yeah,
the tone
yeah,
of the
yeah.
film.
Yeah. Like The Handmaid, not The Handmaid, but more The Usual
Yeah.
Suspects, right?
Well, Handmaiden, no. Handmaiden is just
It's a more artful
me.
way of.
Yeah, Handmaiden is
when-
me
when-
having an annoyance with how they're structuring it. That's not really the tone of. No, this is like a very complicated plot that has to do with time travel
Oh. Okay.
and characters like chasing each other through time, basically.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
And I'm reminded of that film because like that's an example of like it kind of tries to do the same themes of this film, but it doesn't get anywhere with it because it just kind of like makes it plot so complicated and you just become focused on the plot and it's all about figuring out what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then once it ends, you're just like, oh, now I have to like look up online a spreadsheet of like
Oh
what
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah, it's one of those.
yeah, it's one of those.
Isn't Primer something like that too, or does it do it differently? 'Cause I haven't
Primer
seen
is like that too, but Primer is a very different case where, they made it for like no money,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not coming from any sort of like commercial background.
Yeah, right.
They are the indiest. It's one of the most indie films I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like the actual time travel stuff
Mhm.
is like garbage bags in a box.
Right.
kind of
That's
kind
what
of
I've heard.
Like it's
Mhm.
but yet at the same time, the concepts in this film are so ridiculously overblown, and there it's really about the maximalism of the plot.
Okay.
And like in Predestination, it tries to explain it to you, or it tries to like give you the information so that you kind of understand what's happening throughout the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
Primer just throws that out the window
Mm-hmm.
and makes it so just focuses on making the most interesting and fascinating plot there is. And when you finish, you have no idea what happened. You have to go back and like really piece it together, and then it becomes film as like the story as a puzzle that you solve.
So it's
So that's a very different case.
so it's what Inception was to most people. Except I don't think Inception's that hard to figure out.
Well, that's the thing.
lot
Inception
of
was never
people-
hard to figure out.
Oh no, a lot of people was like, what?
Like,
What?
that's just people not being used to
Right, like they're
that
fed.
way of storytelling.
They're fed with Nolan-esque exposition, and they still couldn't.
Well, I mean,
Well, I guess that's the flaw of Nolan-esque exposition.
if you watch a film expecting for the film to give you everything,
Mm-hmm.
then if you are asked by a film, hey, by the way, we're going to throw these concepts at you that they did there that might be a little weird.
Mhm.
If people aren't used to doing that,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Right.
Like, if you don't watch movies to think,
Mm-hmm.
then...
Yeah.
Or, that's a mean way of saying it, although, I mean, to be honest, I am...
Fast and Furious fans.
I am pretty opinionated on that subject.
Yeah.
But, I mean, another way of saying it that's maybe a little nicer, if you're not used to challenging narrative devices,
Mhm.
especially if you're not expecting it from that kind of film,
Right.
like,
Because Inception was marketed as like an all-time heist movie.
yeah, like if you're expecting like, oh, how are they going to get the money?
Right. Or how?
And like, wait, the money's in his brain? How does that work?
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
if like just on face value,
Right.
that just sounds like dumb bullshit.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you really think about it, it is dumb bullshit. But it's packaged in a way that is kind of spoon-fed you the concepts.
I don't think it's dumb.
It's not really dumb.
Bullshit.
That's me.
going a
That's
little
me
harsh.
being a little colorful, and the film's fine.
As a matter of fact, I think Inception's strength, the strongest part of Inception is at the beginning when it doesn't feed you. The beginning of
Yeah,
Inception is
yeah.
quite strong. It expects you to get things through visual cues. It expects you to get the layers through visual cues. And then once they actually... I understand why they had to spoon feed you, because Nolan is actually trying out concepts that have not really been seen before in film. And he's literally like writing his own... the way things work
Mhm.
in this heist. So I guess that makes sense. But my gripes with Inception are much more specific. It's much more nitty gritty. Like, I actually have no problem with the way it tells its story.
Okay, I don't either. I'm just sort of
I think it.
I'm bashing the reality of having to make money.
Well, yeah.
Which is, in the end, that's what it kind of comes down to. This way of filmmaking comes out of having to need things be popular.
I don't think
and
Nolan. I don't think Nolan's that kind. Especially after he's already made The Dark Knight.
I mean, I'm not saying that there's not passion in it. I mean, obviously he cares a lot about what he does. I mean, they're not soulless people, unlike
But you gotta see, like, Nolan started with Memento, and that wasn't commercial, and that was quite great. And when he revived Batman, he didn't know if it was going to make money, because the previous film was Batman and Robin. And it was so bad.
I don't really mean necessarily the concepts, because his concepts are really strong. I mean, like, the Nolanisms that kind of make us go, ugh, right?
Okay.
Like, the stuff that he has to put in there to really make sure everyone gets it.
I don't think
that's... So the maximum amount of people, one, go see it, and two, are glad they saw it, so that they'll see more.
I don't think that's the reason he puts his Nolanisms. I think it's much more similar to a Denis Villeneuveism.
You think?
I think it's just because that's the way he writes.
Oh, okay. Well, then I would argue that he writes that way for the same reasons.
I can't agree with that.
No?
I just think that's what he thinks is an effective way of telling the story.
Okay. Maybe it's a little bit far to say he writes that way because of this reason, because he can write however the fuck he wants, and that's his business. But I suspect, I mean, this is not just about Christopher Nolan, but, like, artists in general, right? They, like, if you are writing in a way to manipulate a viewer, then you are writing in a way to make sure that viewer has a good time. And especially in commercial films, there are many trends that are kind of like the way to make sure you get the money, right?
Yeah.
And Nolanisms are very much, like, wrapped up in that, I feel like. And Nolan's a really interesting example because he's also doing all of these other interesting things with narrative and, freaking Dunkirk is a really interesting example where he's even really exploring, like, film itself.
That one has a lack of Nolanism, but you can also argue that the entire film is a Nolanism. But yeah, that's Dunkirk is such a strange example.
Yeah.
But I would agree that Dunkirk comes at a point where Nolan already knows that he makes box office, and that Dunkirk was him going more experimental. Yeah. But I can't say that something like Inception. I just don't. I'm not that cynical about Nolan. I think that's our differing opinion, and who knows what's true.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty cynical towards, like, big budget things in general, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
like where you love Marvel and I really.
Well, this was made with a huge budget, and Blade Runner 2049 was made with a That was Denis Villeneuve's time where he's like, I can make this film now. Give me $150 million. He makes it. It does not do that well. So who knows what his next film? Oh, I actually know what his next film.
Wait, it's the Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
It did not do well. Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was another film where the entire film is kept in secrecy. I know you've seen the trailer a couple of times because that last summer we went to the theater a lot, and I've covered my eyes. And you even said, like, the more you see this trailer, the more you don't want to see it. That's kind of how I felt with Arrival.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in fact, the moment you go in, you realize, like, oh, the trailer didn't tell me anything about Blade Runner 2049.
Interesting.
Everything is hidden, except for the Harrison Ford shot. Like, if they kept the Harrison Ford shot and made it an actual reveal, that would have been so much better. But they had to include Harrison Ford in because he's in the original Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But, okay, this discussion is getting really long, but I have to go a little farther.
I don't mind.
Okay.
We have plenty
because you talked about Predestination and Primer, which are two films that I haven't seen. I'm going to talk about two films that you haven't seen.
Okay.
But not just for the sake of it. It is for the sake of it is for, like, comparing. These are two sci-fi films that everyone has loved, but I can't get into, and I will try to argue why Arrival kind of justifies why I don't like those two films. The first one is Looper. Which you've heard of. It's by the director Rian Johnson, who did The Last Jedi.
You've told me so much shit about this film.
Well, also Josh loves it, our previous roommate.
Oh,
yeah, man. but Looper came at a time where people were really missing this type of sci-fi that's really gritty and really high concept. And then I watched it, and you know how, so we watched Hell or High Water last year, and Mark made a comment that the movie is just about men being men.
I got this a little bit of a vibe from Arrival too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, from the soldiers.
Yeah, especially since there's a woman protagonist and everybody else is men.
Right.
Like, it's almost comical, right? Like, the woman is like the only one who's actually thinking for herself. It's
Right.
part of another reason I really like this movie.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a good point. But the men being men is very specific, because there are certain times where I think that Mark will think a movie's men being men. Even when we watch Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, there was one point where I'm like, Mark, is this men being men? And Mark's like, this is men being badass.
I did say that.
So, the idea of men being men is very specific. It's like they're very crude, but they're kind of crude just because they're crude, and they just make a lot of reckless decisions.
Mm-hmm.
This is Looper. Looper is, so you know Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the Inception dude, who's like young and slightly Asian looking, the guy with the little eyes.
I think I know that.
He's a young dude.
Okay.
500 Days of Summer. He's the protagonist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if he's Asian looking to everyone else, but to me, he's always been Asian looking.
Yeah, he's like, maybe he's mixed or something. I don't know.
I think he's that. I think he's part French. But he and Bruce Willis, Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, they play younger, older versions of each other. And so there's some point. This movie has a lot of time travel in it. And so at some point, a younger character meets older characters. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt meets Bruce Willis, and the first thing they do is they like have a fist fight in a diner, and they go on they give each other chokeholds, and I'm like, I don't like anybody in this movie, and I thought it was awful. But this is a movie, the reason I compare it with Arrival is that at the end they try to do this thing where it's very emotional, and there's this kid who gets brought in who has like really special powers. And there's this whole thing about motherhood, and then the ending is supposed to be very tragic, but it's done in a way where it just doesn't work. It just doesn't, it's not well integrated into the film. And the ending, it just delivers at you like at the fastest speed possible, and then something happens and you're supposed to be shocked by it, and you are shocked by it, but the emotions don't kick in.
Sounds a little like Predestination.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, because that's what reminded me of Looper. Because you talked about how like it tries to go somewhere with the Arrival thing, but it doesn't. But it doesn't pull it off as well. And I don't know how many films can pull it off as well. But that's my spiel with Looper. The second film is a film that came out this year that was hailed as a sci-fi masterpiece. It's the second film by the director of Ex Machina. I went to see it.
What is it?
It's called Annihilation. It stars Natalie Portman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I saw this movie, and that's a movie where they take the concepts and go even crazy. They go crazier with the what is it? What's the word? Oh, I'm thinking of a word. Man, I'm not good with words today. The explanation. That's the word. I was thinking exposition.
Considering the film we just watched, that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But they go overboard with the explanation of every single thing, and that's a movie that's about. Okay, so the movie's literally about this weird thing that occurs at some part in the world where different species begin to reproduce rapidly, and they begin to fuse together. So humans fuse with plants. Mm-hmm. And it's just this ecosystem where everything is going crazy. And these by the way, okay, good thing about this film. All the leads are females, but because this film was not, it didn't have an agenda to push. Mainstream media did not acknowledge it for the great feminist film that it was. And shame on you, mainstream media, because if people needed to go see the film, it's because of that, because there's some good female representation in that. Like just badass women going into this place they don't know, and they're all scientists and they're all really capable. That's so good. But anyway, that's besides the point. Yeah, they go overboard. Every single thing they see, they have to explain it, and it takes me out of everything. And with Arrival, I think, despite the Nolanisms, those aren't like I think most of the science stuff though they did just enough. Mm-hmm. There were parts where they withhold information, and then they give you just enough for you to understand it, and then they give you the revelation. With Annihilation, well, everything rhymes. Everything is a revelation. Even up until the last 15 minutes, which could be some of the greatest sci-fi filmmaking I've ever seen.
When you say revelation, do you mean like it's revealed that new information exists?
No.
Or like you as a viewer realize something that... What do you mean by revelation?
It's something that the film already does so well, because with Ex Machina, it's all about what the motives of every individual are. And I think that's you might think, it's a little too thrillery, because that's your opinion on it. But I think what it does is it hides every character's intention very well until the very end.
Oh.
But with Annihilation, it does things that are... It's also very well directed. Well, somewhat well directed. There are things. But there are things that the director shows you so clearly visually that they have to kind of ruin the mystery and the magic of it by explaining it, by going full on explanation. Yeah, there's a very tense and scary scene featuring this bear creature, and basically there was this revelation that the bear could reproduce human voice in a way, and there's like this screaming girl that is like that kind of... It's like harmonics. You can hear the screaming girl's voice through the bear's roar, and it's like, whoa, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first thing we hear the next morning, it's like, oh, we're done. We fall asleep. Next morning, oh my god, that bear had Cass's voice. I can't believe it. I'm like, film, why did you just do this? So I guess the reason I'm bringing up these two films is I'm kind of exploring what it is in sci-fi that I like and don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't explain too much, but you can explain just enough.
Ooh, never watched the original series of Star Trek.
Really?
They do that all the time.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it's science fiction from the 60s.
Right.
And they were, like, delving into new territory with, like, what was possible in television at the time. So they kind of had to explain everything they did.
Ugh, but you know me. With these old pieces of media, I get so much more lenient. Like, I've seen some of the original episodes of Doctor Who, and they go so overboard with the explanations, but I'm like, I'm okay with this.
Star Trek is almost nothing but explanations for the whole episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I do want to get into Star Trek. By the way, I've never seen anything Star Trek.
Oh, I've seen them all. They're wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up with them. Wow. I would eat... My mother and I would
eat Star Trek for breakfast.
No, actually, well, not for breakfast, but my mother and I, it became a tradition of ours. When we ate dinner, we would watch Star Trek.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we watched, like... She still... I mean, when my grandmother was living, she would continue to watch Star Trek with her, even though my grandmother didn't really get much of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like a tradition in our family, almost. To watch Star Trek at food.
How fitting is it that we end this discussion with...
Wait, we're done?
Oh, wait, are you done?
I have more things I want to say.
Oh, let's go!
Do I remember
Oh, but let
them?
me finish my point.
Oh,
Yeah, how fitting it is that we almost ended the discussion with mentions of family.
Oh, yeah.
And that. Anyway, but that's okay. We have more things to say. This could be our longest discussion. I think this is.
I think it already is.
Yeah.
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 For a good reason, because
Very
this
good
film
reason.
has a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, though, is that I don't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, jeez. Let me continue. Usually when I talk about something, you'll remember it.
Yeah.
So, wow, we talked about Inception. We talked about everything.
We talked about good movies, bad movies.
Yes, Predestination. Which is funny, the movie's title is Predestination.
Yeah, so it's like...
And that's literally, like, kind of what Arrival is about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Aw, man. You had more stuff to say? It's okay. Don't like, sweat trying to think about it. I'll just keep the audience entertained. I'll start stripping or something.
Gosh, that's the second time you mentioned stripping on camera.
Wait, really? What was the first time?
I don't remember.
We've mentioned stripping on camera before.
Now that you've released this channel to Facebook members, we now have potential family watching.
That's
so
fine.
Careful what you say.
We have my mom might see it.
I mean, I don't...
My mom doesn't know the side of my humor at all.
Oh, well, that's
yeah,
funny.
So it's pretty funny. Anything? Oh, in terms of okay, let's talk about Amy Adams.
What else has she been in?
She was in Batman v Superman. She was Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
At first, I thought she was the actress from House of Cards, Zoe.
Oh.
What's her name?
No, I don't remember.
No, but she's not the same person.
No.
They just look similar.
Deutsch? No, not Zoe Deutsch. Zoe Deutsch doesn't look.
And
she does look like Zoe Deutsch actually.
yeah, Zoe. Yeah, she was also like in the really bad Fantastic Four remake.
Oh, Kate Mara?
No, no. Her first name is Zoe, I think.
Wait, that is Zoe Deutsch. Yeah, I saw her in the shitty Groundhog Day teen remake. It starred her last year, so it's called Before I Fall. Oh, don't watch it. Happy Death Day is a much better Groundhog Day reimagining. There were 2 Groundhog Day reimaginings that came out last year. I can't believe it. Oh well. Anyway, what I was gonna say is Amy Adams isn't. I don't think she's like. Everybody says she's a great actress. I never got it. I never understood. And I still don't quite get it with this film, but I can say this is probably her best performance.
Yeah, this film isn't all about the acting, but the acting's pretty good.
But there are people who say that, oh my gosh, Amy Adams' performance is so good. I'm like, it's not that.
I mean, when you have a film that's this good, I mean,
right, exactly.
Like,
this is not.
You need good actors.
Right, this is
unless
just
you're doing
to explore what I think of Amy Adams.
Unless you're doing something really out there, like you need strong actors if you're gonna have.
The Killing of a Sacred Deer, like
I was just thinking of that, but even then, you need a good actor to play that kind of style.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, like there are.
There's a reason he keeps on getting Colin Farrell because he was Lobster too.
Oh my god, yeah, he's perfect for those roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but. In terms of Amy Adams playing badass female characters, you know, this is way better than Man of Steel.
Oh, I remember something I was going to say.
Go.
The Brechter test.
The Bechtel test.
Bechtel test.
Yes, not
Bechtel
Brecht.
Test.
The Bertolt Brecht test.
The Bertolt Brecht test. Do you feel alienated?
Grand Budapest Hotel. Let's talk about it. Oh boy. I'll start that again. But yes, the Bechdel test.
Yeah, this film does not pass the Bechdel test.
Does it not?
No. I don't think... There is one conversation that happens between the daughter...
Oh.
Well, actually, wait. There is a scene where the daughter and the mother discuss, like, can you give me this word?
Yeah.
Like, I want the word. No, I want the science word. And she just, like, refuses.
But she tells them to call the dad. But that's...
Yeah, oh, yeah. So, okay, dad gets mentioned. Okay,
oh,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah, in every single, like, significant scene with, like, the
Oh.
mother and daughter, that, like, the dad gets mentioned. But it makes me think, like, it's kind of an example of how the Bechdel test isn't really that perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is definitely a film where she has her own independence.
Mm-hmm.
To the fact where she has her own independence, but she's surrounded by men who are making bad decisions.
Right.
Except for maybe with the exception of, like, who becomes the husband.
Mm-hmm.
But even he is seen to be, like, kind of a dick also.
Yeah.
Like, at least in the beginning, but, like, totally not, like, all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
That was interesting. But, like, yeah, because for this film, it's clear that the dad leaving was a significant event.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if you remember the beginning, I think it's insinuated that after the dad heard that the daughter was going to die,
Yes.
that he left.
Yes.
And said she made a bad choice. And so, does the Bechdel test really apply in this case? I mean, it applies. You can apply it, but...
Well, it's a test that works or doesn't.
Right, and then I remember the last time we really talked about the Bechdel test was actually last year in the exploitation film Mrs. 45, and how you commented it does pass the Bechdel test.
Was it?
Because remember there were scenes where, like, the girls are, like, hanging out together.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're, like, actually talking about, like, other stuff. Other trashy stuff. But not men.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that film is Mrs. 45. That's, like, quintessential exploitation.
Well, you could argue that it's somewhat feminist as well, because, like, the protagonist is a badass female who basically goes batshit.
But that's the talk about exploitation films.
Yeah, that's the exploitation film talk. That has nothing to do with Arrival.
Man, we've had so many flashbacks to other films, like...
Flashbacks, you don't say.
Yeah, we talked about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for a bit.
Yeah.
We talked about The Grand Budapest Hotel. Yeah, we mentioned... we almost mentioned Miss Scorpion. Well, now I just did, because we're talking exploitation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What a great talk.
What a very summarizing, non-linear talk.
Yes. Is there anything...
I think that might be a good stopping point.
That's a good stopping point?
Yeah.
Right.
Alright, I really enjoyed this.
Yes.
I'm thinking of... Actually, no, I'll say that off camera.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this talk.